I'm Andrea, and even though years have passed, I still vividly remember that day. It was a time in my life where creativity was my refuge. My passion for hair, for transforming it, was something very personal. Since I was little, I loved experimenting with hairstyles. I didn't follow trends, I created my own. Every braid, every curl was an expression of my identity. My hands had a natural knack for it. I could spend hours in front of a mirror, imagining and creating. It was my form of art, my small universe. But not everyone shared my enthusiasm. School, that melting pot of personalities, was often a place of judgment. The hallways became a runway of stares. My hairstyles, sometimes bold, other times subtle, were not always understood. They were different, and different, for some, was a reason for mockery. I remember whispers, stifled laughter, and contemptuous glances. I felt how my creations, which I loved so much, became the target of comments. It hurt, of course it did. It was a wound to my confidence. But more than that, it was a misunderstanding of what it truly meant to me. My hairstyles weren't just adornments. They were a part of my soul. Each one told a story, a mood, an aspiration. Despite the mockery, I never stopped experimenting. There was something in me that refused to conform. My creative spirit was stronger. I even started creating my own products. I mixed natural ingredients at home, searching for the perfect formula for my hair. They were magic potions, I thought. Oils, plant extracts, all to nourish and bring life to my hairstyles. They were well-kept secrets. No one knew about these homemade experiments. They were just for me, for my hair, to keep it healthy and vibrant. On the morning of that crucial day, I had put in extra effort. I had created a hairstyle that made me feel powerful. It was a personal work of art. I left home with a mix of pride and nervousness. I knew it would stand out, but I hoped that this time, the reaction would be different. But the echo of past mockery resonated in my mind. School awaited me, and with it, the uncertainty of how my latest creation would be received. As soon as I stepped onto the schoolyard, I felt the stares. They were the same as always, but this time, more intense. My hairstyle didn't go unnoticed. I had opted for something bold, a series of intricate braids gathered into a crown, adorned with small golden threads. It was a statement. The whispers started immediately. They spread like wildfire. I could hear fragments of conversations, muffled laughter. "Did you see Andrea's hair? It looks like a nest. How ridiculous," were some of the phrases I managed to catch. My heart sank. I tried to ignore them, to walk with my head held high. But the weight of their judgments was overwhelming. I felt my cheeks flush red. My hands trembled slightly as I opened my locker. I wanted to disappear, to merge with the walls, to become invisible. History class was my next stop. I sat at my desk, trying to concentrate on the book, but my eyes kept wandering. I saw my classmates. Some looked directly at me, others whispered with their friends. The feeling of being the center of attention was unbearable. I felt a pang of frustration. Why couldn't they understand? Why was my creativity a source of mockery and not admiration? I wanted to shout that it wasn't just a hairstyle, that it was a part of me, of my effort, of my art. But the words wouldn't come out. I felt exposed, vulnerable, as if my soul were laid bare and they were laughing at it. School felt like a battlefield. Tears threatened to well up. I blinked several times, trying to hold them back. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. The bell rang, signaling the start of class. Professor Isabel entered the classroom. Her presence always commanded respect. She was a woman with sharp eyes and a serene voice, always attentive to her students, not just their grades, but also their well-being. At that moment, I only wished for class to end. I wanted to escape that oppressive atmosphere, from the laughter that still echoed in my mind. Professor Isabel began her class, but I could barely follow along. My mind was clouded by shame and sadness. I felt her gaze. It wasn't a judgmental look, but one of observation. I looked up, and our eyes met for an instant. She didn't smile or frown. She simply looked at me, and in that gaze, I felt something different. There was genuine curiosity. She turned her attention back to the board, but I knew she had seen me. She had noticed my discomfort, my hairstyle, and my classmates' reaction. During class, I surprised myself several times feeling her gaze. It wasn't intrusive, but attentive, as if she were trying to decipher something. I wondered what she was thinking. Did she see me as a weird girl? Or perhaps as someone who dared to be different? The tension in the classroom, at least for me, was palpable. The whispers had subsided, but the atmosphere remained heavy. My classmates, though more discreet, continued to cast furtive glances. The mockery had transformed into an uncomfortable curiosity. I, for my part, tried to appear normal. I took notes, nodded my head, but my concentration was elsewhere. I was trapped in my own head, reliving every laugh, every comment. The feeling of being judged was a heavy burden. The class seemed endless. Every minute stretched out, and I only wished for the bell to ring so I could leave. Finally, the sound of the bell broke the silence. My classmates quickly stood up, eager to leave. I started packing my things slowly without rush. I wanted to be the last one out, to avoid any encounters or stares. But before I could stand up, I heard her voice. "Andrea, could you stay for a moment, please?" My heart stopped. I turned slowly, my pulse racing. Professor Isabel stood by her desk, looking at me with that same indecipherable expression. I approached her desk with a churning stomach. Would she scold me for my hairstyle? Would she tell me I should be more discreet? She invited me to sit in a chair opposite her. Her voice was soft but firm. "Andrea, are you okay?" she asked directly. It caught me by surprise. I expected anything but a question about my well-being. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Yes, Professor, I'm fine," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I avoided her gaze, fixing my eyes on the desk. She didn't pressure me. She was silent for a moment, and then, to my astonishment, her gaze fell on my hair. "Your hairstyle is very interesting, Andrea," she said, her tone genuinely curious, not critical. I looked up, surprised. "It's different," she continued. "I've never seen anything like it. How did you do it? It looks very elaborate." There was admiration in her voice. My defenses began to crumble. No one, except me, had shown interest in the process, only in the result to judge it. I began to explain, at first timidly, then with more confidence. I told her about the braids, the golden threads, the concept. She listened attentively, nodding occasionally. There wasn't a hint of mockery in her eyes, only sincere curiosity. "And the shine of your hair," she commented. "It looks very healthy and strong. Do you use any special products? I'd like to know your secret." That question caught me off guard. It was the first time anyone, besides myself, had noticed the quality of my hair. I hesitated. Should I reveal my secret? Tell her about my homemade concoctions? It was something so personal, so mine. But her gaze was so open, so devoid of judgment. I felt an unexpected connection, a trust one hadn't felt before. "Yes, Professor," I finally said, my voice a little stronger. "In fact, I make my own hair products." Professor Isabel raised an eyebrow, an expression of surprise and fascination on her face. "That's fascinating, Andrea," she exclaimed. "You make them yourself? What kind of products? And what ingredients do you use?" she asked, her voice full of enthusiasm. I told her about my kitchen experiments, how I mixed coconut and avocado oils, rosemary and chamomile infusions. I explained that my hair was particular and that commercial products didn't always work for me. So I started creating my own. I started out of necessity. I told her. I wanted something that would truly nourish it, make it strong and shiny, without harsh chemicals. She listened with an attention I had never experienced. It was as if she were listening to a story from a book, not a student. "So, are they hair care products?" she asked. "Like conditioners, oils, treatments?" "Yes," I replied. "I have a pre-wash oil, a leave-in conditioner, and a styling cream. They are my favorites." I told her how rosemary oil helped with growth, and avocado provided shine. I felt comfortable, something new for me. It was the first time I had shared my passion in this way. Not as an oddity, but as knowledge, a skill. Professor Isabel nodded. "That's incredible, Andrea. You have a talent." I explained the benefits of my products, how the natural ingredients work. She listened attentively. At the end of the conversation, Laura asked me to prepare a set for her. It was my second sale, and this time, to someone unexpected. Word of mouth began to work. Small orders started coming in, first from classmates, then from mothers. It was a domino effect. Professor Isabel's validation had opened a door. People trusted her judgment. My small home-based business was growing, one customer at a time. And all thanks to the intervention of a teacher who saw beyond. Every new order was an injection of energy. My kitchen transformed into a small laboratory full of bottles and aromas. I started keeping a notebook to jot down orders, ingredients, profits. It was rudimentary, but it was my first step. The idea that this could be more than a hobby began to take shape in my mind. Could it be a real business? My parents, seeing my enthusiasm and the growing number of orders, encouraged me. "Andrea, you have an opportunity here," my father told me. I started researching. I read about small businesses, about marketing, about how to register a brand. The world of entrepreneurship fascinated me. I discovered that in Colombia, there were support programs for entrepreneurs. I felt inspired, but also a little overwhelmed. School remained my priority, but my nights and weekends were dedicated to my new passion. It was exhausting but rewarding. My friends, the ones who supported me, became my first employees. They helped me label, pack, and make deliveries. I learned about the importance of quality, of customer service. Every person who bought my products was an opportunity. I wanted every customer to feel they were receiving something special, made with love and dedication. Personalization was key. I started thinking about a name for my brand. Something that reflected the essence of my products. Natural, authentic, unique. Ideas emerged. Some good, others not so much. I wanted a name that resonated with my story, with my journey. Finally, after many nights of brainstorming, I found the perfect name. Essentia Andrea. It was simple, yet meaningful. It was a tribute to authenticity, to the essence of the natural, and to myself. It was my brand, my legacy. The entrepreneurial awakening was real. I was no longer just a girl with a hobby, but a woman with a vision. The path of entrepreneurship was not easy. I soon realized that passion was not enough. There were many obstacles. The first major challenge was production. My homemade mixtures were not scalable. I needed equipment, more efficient processes. Initial investment was a problem. I didn't have much capital. I had to use my savings and take out a small loan from my parents. Then came the bureaucracy. Registering the company, obtaining permits, complying with health regulations. It was a labyrinth. I felt overwhelmed by the amount of paperwork. There were times when I wanted to give up, to go back to being just Andrea, the one who made products for herself. Competition was also fierce. The market was full of established brands, with large marketing budgets. How could my small homemade brand compete with giants? Doubts began to gnaw at my confidence. Some people, even well-meaning friends, told me to be realistic. That the market was tough, that I would fail. "It's better you focus on your studies, Andrea," a relative advised me. "Business is for people with experience." Those comments hurt. They were like the mockery at school, but this time about my future, about my dreams. There were days when sales were low, and frustration took over. Was I making a mistake? But then I remembered Professor Isabel's gaze, her faith in me. I remember the first sale, the excitement. Those memories were my driving force. They reminded me why I started, and they gave me the strength to keep going. I decided to seek mentorship. I approached small local business owners, asking for advice, learning from their mistakes. Every challenge was a lesson. Every doubt, an opportunity to strengthen my determination. I would not give up. With every obstacle overcome, Essentia Andrea grew. Little by little, my brand began to gain recognition. I invested in professional packaging design. My products now looked as good as they felt. Image was important. I started participating in local entrepreneurship fairs. It was an opportunity to introduce my brand to a wider audience. The response was incredible. People were drawn to the story behind the brand, to the authenticity of my products. Online reviews were positive. Customers praised the quality, the results, and my commitment to natural ingredients. My team grew. I hired some of my former schoolmates who had helped me at the beginning. It was a dream come true. We opened a small shop in a shopping center, a cozy space where customers could try the products and receive advice. The story of how Essentia Andrea was born, of the mockery and the teacher's intervention, became popular. Local media began to take interest. I was invited to radio and television shows to tell my story. It was surreal. The girl who hid from mockery at school was now on television, sharing her journey. Recognition wasn't just about sales. It was about the impact my products had on people's lives. I received messages from women telling me how my products had transformed their hair and, with it, their confidence. That was the most rewarding. Seeing how my passion helped others feel better about themselves. Essentia Andrea was not just a hair product brand. It was a symbol of overcoming, of believing in oneself. Growth was constant, and with it, the feeling that all the effort had been worth it. Years later, Essentia Andrea was a nationally recognized brand. We were about to launch a new line. I organized a launch event in an elegant ballroom in Bogota. Guests included press, influencers, and collaborators. As I gave my speech, talking about the brand's journey, my gaze stopped on a familiar face in the crowd. It was Laura, the same classmate who had mocked me at school and who later became my second customer. She was there, with her shiny, healthy hair, smiling at me with an expression of genuine admiration. Our eyes met, and at that moment, I felt a circle close. There was no resentment, only a mutual understanding. After the speech, Laura approached me. "Andrea, I can't believe what you've achieved," she said, her voice full of awe. "I had to come. I always knew you had something special, even when we were kids," she added, a little embarrassed. I smiled at her. "Thank you, Laura. Your first purchases were very important to me. They gave me confidence." We talked for a while, reminiscing about old times. She told me she was now a loyal follower of the brand, and so were her friends. It was an unexpected reunion, proof of how time and success can transform perceptions. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. As I greeted guests, I saw a woman with graying hair approach. My heart skipped a beat. It was Professor Isabel. She had changed a bit, but her gaze was still the same, warm and wise. "Professor Isabel!" I exclaimed, my voice filled with emotion. I hugged her tightly. "I can't believe you're here." She hugged me back. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Andrea. I'm so proud of you." It was a moment of deep gratitude. She had been the spark, the first to believe, the one who saw the potential. Professor Isabel and I sat down to talk. I told her everything about the journey of Essentia Andrea, the ups and downs, the successes. She listened with her characteristic attention, nodding and smiling. "I always knew you had something special, Andrea," she repeated. "But I must confess something," she said, her voice lowering a bit. "That time at school, when I asked you to stay, it wasn't just because of your hairstyle or my desire to try your products. It was because I saw something more in you. I saw the pain in your eyes, the way the mockery affected you. And I saw the shine in your hair, the care you put into it. I realized that your hairstyle was armor, a way to express yourself despite adversity. And your products, your passion. I wanted you to know that someone saw you, that someone valued your effort. I wanted to give you a reason not to give up." Her words deeply moved me. It wasn't just a purchase. It was an act of kindness, of mentorship, of faith. "You were my first customer, Professor, but you were also the first to believe in me," I told her, my eyes filled with tears. She smiled. "Sometimes, a small gesture can change the course of a life. I'm glad I was a part of yours." At that moment, I understood true wealth. It wasn't just the success of my company, the millions in sales, the recognition. True wealth was human connection, the positive impact on others' lives, the ability to transform adversity. It was the lesson that the most important validation comes from within, but that an act of kindness can be the catalyst. Essentia Andrea became a symbol, not just of hair beauty, but of resilience, authenticity, and purpose. The hairstyle that was once a source of mockery had become the foundation of an empire. And the teacher who intervened, my guardian angel. My story is a reminder that sometimes, what seems like a painful end is just the beginning of something extraordinary.